Welcome, everybody, to a very special episode of App Stories. This episode is brought to you by ZocDoc, Vitally, and Clean My Mac X. I'm John Voorhees, and with me are Federico Vitici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John.
And Alex Gio. Hi, Alex.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. You know what? I'm a little wound up because I've been writing. I was trying to get my iPhone story done in order to start this podcast, and I was 99.9% of the way there. But then you have that moment where you think, I really ought to read this again because I'm sure there's a mistake lurking in there somewhere. So I'm going to wait.
Let's just jump right in. The Apple event wrapped up about 90 minutes ago, and we have release dates for iOS and iPadOS 17. That's on Monday, September 18th, alongside tvOS 17. watchOS 10 is also coming out on Monday. And John is the lucky one here, but maybe not as lucky as in previous years because macOS 14, macOS Sonoma, is launching September 26th.
Yay, and I'm going to be out of town the weekend before.
October. So you have one extra week, but you have a bunch of travel coming up.
I do not have one extra week. This is 2 to 3 weeks earlier than normal, Federico.
I'm so sorry. I understand your position very well.
Yes, so. I know. It'll all get done. Anyway, no, we should talk about what was announced today, not about OSs. That's for another episode of App Stories, Federico. We should talk about iPhones, Apple Watches, accessories, and the environment, because that was a big part of today's presentation as well. But why don't we go maybe by the order that things came out during the event, because Apple led off with the Apple Watch.
Before we do that, because we're recording this live in the Club Mac Stories Discord, and one of the things we want to do for this live episode, we do them every once in a while, right? After WWDC, if we can coordinate. But in this case, we are going to answer some member questions from the audience at the end of this episode. There's going to be a special App Stories Plus segment, not at the beginning, as John and I usually do, but at the end, so that everybody can listen in Discord. And if you have any questions, I've been checking out some of the details on the Apple website and in the press releases. I'm guessing more than folks who are at the event or John and Alex who have been writing. So if you have questions or just you want to share a few thoughts, we're going to answer those at the end of this episode. So stay tuned for that at the end. That being said, John, what do you want to talk about?
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by ZocDoc. Have you ever been on the hunt for a new doctor and you ask everyone you know for the recommendation? I mean, it makes sense. You want a doctor who actually gets you, listens to you, and makes you feel super comfortable. And finally, after weeks and weeks of searching, you finally find the one doctor that you want. They meet all your requirements and then some. So you call their office and they have an appointment available. And only then do you learn that your perfect doctor doesn't take your insurance. But don't worry. Head on over to ZocDoc to find and book a doctor who's right for you and takes your insurance. ZocDoc is a free app where you can find amazing doctors and book appointments online. We're talking about booking appointments with thousands of top-rated, patient-reviewed doctors and specialists. You can filter specifically for the ones that take your insurance, are located nearby, and treat almost any condition you're searching for. These docs all have verified reviews from actual real patients, not bots. The average wait time to see a doctor booked on ZocDoc is between 24 and 48 hours. That's it. You can even get same-day appointments. Once you find the doctor you want, you can book them immediately with just a few taps so you're not stuck waiting awkwardly on hold with a receptionist. ZocDoc is a great app and service. I really found it to be a lifesaver when I moved to North Carolina because I had to find a bunch of doctors for my family. And you know what? I've got that mostly behind me now, but I love that I still have the option to use ZocDoc going forward because, you never know when you might need some sort of specialist or something who you're looking for. And it's always a pain, I find, to look for a doctor because you have to ask a lot of people. You got to look on a bunch of websites. But with ZocDoc, it's all in one place. Very easy to find, search, and filter and get exactly the kind of doctor that you're looking for. So go on over to ZocDoc.com/appstories and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/appstories. ZocDoc.com/appstories. Our thanks to ZocDoc for their support of the show. I would like to talk about the Apple Watch because we got two brand new Apple Watches with new chips inside them. And I'm going to turn this over to Alex in a second, but we got the Apple Watch Series 9 as well as the Apple Watch Ultra 2. And I don't know, I guess I would consider these nice updates. You know, the faster chip is enabling some new features that we can talk about that, you know, weren't leaked in advance, which is always kind of fun to see those kind of surprises. But I think from a, you know, a design and hardware perspective, there's not a lot new here. And I personally was very disappointed that we didn't get new Apple Watch Ultra bands. I mean, we did get new colors, but they're still the same styles as we had since the Apple Watch Ultra was introduced last fall. But, you know, I do like the new colors. I do think that that's a nice addition. I just wanted to see a little more variety. But Alex, what do you think of the, I guess let's start with the Series 9.
Yeah, it's a small update this year around, but I think it's kind of what we've been growing used to in recent years is that, you know, these Apple Watches every year stay mostly the same, but get a few new small additions. It does look like perhaps the chip has been updated more this year than it has been in a few years. I feel like they keep updating the chip number, but when we look into it deeper in the last few years, it seems like not much actually changed in the chip other than the number being incremented. This year, it seems like they've increased the speed quite a lot. So the chip has faster speeds. It's got a new neural engine, so it's going to be able to do more processing on chip. That opens up a few new use cases for it, including on-device Siri we're getting, which is a pretty nice new addition. So hopefully Siri will be faster, because that's been commonly, I think, for most people who try to use Siri on the Apple Watch, one of the most frustrating things is when, you know, it sits there and she says, "Oh, hang on, let me get back to you," or whatever. We'll still have to see if that, if this, or I guess how much this changes that. Because I'm sure if she still has to go off device to pull any data, it could still be slow, but hopefully that'll speed up some things. And then, I think this, we'll get into all the features, but the new gestures are maybe helped by the chip, although I guess I'm not sure because accessibility had those last year. But it seems like they've got quite a few new things, though, going on at the chip level. Definitely the biggest update there that we've seen in a while. And it'll be good to see how much that actually impacts things in practice. I don't know. I feel like the watches haven't been, I feel like speed hasn't been one of the main things people have been complaining about in recent years, but it's still always good to see it increased. We've got brighter displays, which is nice. But overall, I think that's kind of the main changes hardware wise. Otherwise, we're just looking at the same case design in the same sizes. So on the outside, you really won't be able to see much difference here in the Series 9 or in the new Ultra 2. So not the big redesign that people have been talking about. I feel like for years now we've been talking about this new watch redesign coming. And another year, I guess, but we'll see.
Yeah, I do think that the neural engine is going to make a difference, because I do think that being able to do more Siri requests on device is an advantage, especially, because you're not relying on a cellular network or Wi-Fi or anything like that. You can be out and about and be able to get Siri to do things for you, such as start a timer or whatever the other examples they had were, without having to rely on a data connection.
Yeah, and I think what's also interesting here, and something we need to keep an eye on, is Apple mentioning more and more on every event that they do that they have this transformer model that is going to be the foundation for these new conversational features of iOS. And in this case, it's enabling, we've seen the slides, it's enabling some really advanced natural language queries for the health app on the watch. And I don't recall the exact phrases, but Apple showed off this slide where They said that later this year, you will be able in English and Mandarin, I believe, you'll be able to ask the Apple Watch some health-related questions that are processed on device. So your health questions do not get sent ever to Apple servers, and Siri processes them on device. And things like how many flights of stairs have I climbed today, or how much weight did I lose over the past week? Like that's some pretty advanced natural language syntax that you can enable with this kind of transformer model. And we've seen this model being used in the autocorrect keyboard in iOS and iPadOS 17. I am convinced this is going to be one of the key themes, one of the leading topics for going into 2024. This is only the second time we've heard of this new transformer model that Apple is using, and I do not think it'll be the last. I think, in fact, it'll be the main character of WWDC 2024.
Yeah, so that sounds like then they have figured out a way maybe to introduce that into Siri, because I feel like that's been the question that we've had outstanding, is whether, this Siri architecture was old and outdated and was going to resist being upgraded to work with these new language models, and then following that, how long it would take Apple to switch over to it. And so that's good news then. It sounds like maybe, they haven't talked too much about it, so you're right. I'm sure we'll hear more at WWDC if they've really made this happen. But I think it's definitely good early signs that we might be seeing some really very needed Siri improvements coming down the pipe.
Semi-serious question. Do we think it's a coincidence that in the same year that saw the Barbie movie have such a massive success, we have a pink Apple Watch and a pink iPhone?
No, not at all. It's pink is a very cultural phenomenon right now. And
I was watching the event with Sylvia, and the first thing she said was like, "Did they make a pink Apple Watch because of the Barbie movie?"
Yeah, I think she's right. I think it's just one of those things. It's fashion, right? Fashion. Movies can set fashion. Fashion designers can set fashion, and yeah, I think that's probably had a role in it.
Alex, Apple Watch Ultra 2. Do you think that someone who has an Apple Watch Ultra 1 should upgrade to an Apple Watch Ultra 2?
Well, I don't know. I think it depends on your use cases. It seems like this double tap gesture, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like this is going to be Series 9 and Apple Watch Ultra 2 specific.
Yeah.
That seems like, at least for the use cases that the Apple Watch Ultra is marketed to, which is, many athletic or outdoor activities where you're definitely more likely to have your hands full in a way that you don't really want to be tapping on your watch. It seems like the double tap gesture to do things on the watch could be a really, really big game changer there. So that might be a reason to upgrade. Other than that, I don't see too much here. The screen is way brighter. It's up to 3,000 nits. So I guess if you're, rock climbing in direct sunlight or something,
yes,
that might be something that is a big deal to you. But I think for most users, that won't be the biggest change. And, the Ultra was already pretty fast. I feel like that wasn't much of a complaint. So I think, what's the battery life? I can't remember. It looks like the battery life is the same, which, was already really good. So I don't see too much here other than the double tap gesture. So that could be one. But other than that, we haven't seen too many differences on the Ultra 2.
Let's be real. The double tap gesture is not an ultra sports gesture. That's the John is trying to unlock his front door while drinking a coffee gesture and wants to be.
Is that something you do often?
Yes. Okay. I go out for a walk, buy a coffee, and walk home. And I want to pause my workout, my walk workout, or stop it. And that's a pretty nice use case, because I find myself all the time wanting to pause workouts or something when I've got something in my hands and it's difficult to do.
And I saw some confusion when they showed these off during the event, that this double tap gesture, I saw a bunch of people say, isn't that the same thing that they released last year as part of the accessibility features on the watch? And I think what's different here, based on what Apple said, is that they're also using this new on-device machine learning model to detect based on like your internal blood flow and muscle movements to be much more accurate than the previous accessibility gestures, to recognize when you're in fact double tapping your fingers together. So
right.
And that's part of the Series 9 of the S9. What do they call it? SIP.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time they say it, SIP, my brain hears SIMP. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, that's part of all the offline capabilities of the S9, which I think I want to see what it looks like, what it works like in practice. Like first reaction was, is that gonna be very reliable? Is it gonna lead to a lot of like accidental activations of the double tap gestures when, like, I don't know, say that I'm cooking or I'm doing something around the house? Will my Apple Watch think that I'm double tapping? And if so, I guess a happy consequence of that would be that I'm going to see widgets a lot more often, because the double tap gesture on the watch face brings up the smart stack with your widgets. So I'm guessing that Apple is happy with that anyway. So Apple Watch Ultra, 1,000 nits more if you're working out, if you are out in direct sunlight. The what's it called? The ultra modular watch face. Do we have details, Alex, whether that's locked to the new Apple Watch Ultra or if you can use it on an existing generation Ultra?
I don't think we know that yet. I would really hope that it's on both, but yeah, you never really know with these faces. But I don't see anywhere that they've said either way.
Yeah, okay. I don't think they have. I would think that would probably be on the one. I don't think there's any technical reason why it wouldn't be, but you're right, Alex. I mean, sometimes they just do that stuff.
Yeah. Anything else that we should mention for Apple Watch? WatchOS 10 is coming out on Monday. I've had the WatchOS 10 beta on my watch since June, and I gotta say I'm super happy with the new design language for apps.
Agreed.
We'll talk about this some more in the near future.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Vitally. Customer success teams today are facing a problem. How do they connect customer data back to their work? Vitally changes that. It's a new kind of customer success platform, an all-in-one collaborative workspace that combines your customer data with the capabilities you expect from today's project management and work platforms. That's because it's designed for today's customer success team. That's why Vitally operates with unparalleled efficiency, improves net revenue retention, and delivers best-in-class customer experiences. It's the solution to helping your customer success teams keep a better pulse on your customers, which maximizes productivity, visibility, and collaboration. You can boost your bottom line by driving more revenue per customer with Vitally. And if you take a qualified demo of Vitally, get a free pair of AirPods Pro. So if you're a customer success decision maker actively seeking CS solutions, working at a B2B, software as a service company with 50 to 1,000 employees, and you're willing to explore changing customer success platforms if you already have one in place, schedule your call by visiting vitally.io/appstories and get that free pair of AirPods Pro. That's vitally.io/appstories for a free pair of AirPods Pro when you schedule a qualified meeting. Our thanks to Vitally for their support of the show.
Before we talk about the iPhones, let's talk about the environment, because Apple made a big deal for this event to talk about how they want to go completely carbon neutral by, is that right, by 2030? Like completely carbon neutral?
Yep.
And they are now trying to make these completely carbon neutral devices as part of these efforts. And I think obviously that's such an awesome initiative. And, I say this because I try and listen to people who know more about this topic than we do. And as we were watching the event and chatting with Discord members, Lachlan, one of our moderators who works in this field, they said that the work that Apple is doing in this regard is far beyond what any other type of similar corporate initiative by other tech companies. So that's awesome to see. And especially like I wanna call out and guess ask you guys what you think. The video that they used in the middle of this segment, which was like a little. It's not even a promo. Is it a promo video? I'm not sure what it was, but Tim Cook was involved, as well as what's the name of the actress? Octavia Spencer. Is that the name of the famous actress? Yeah. I thought it was so funny, but also like unexpected.
Yeah,
my reaction.
I mean, I guess it was unexpected because it's different than the way that Apple as a company has spoken about the environment in the past. And I think that what they're trying to do is get people's attention in a new way because, I think a lot of people see that when they shift over to the environmental thing, it had become kind of a routine that they did that sounded very samey every single presentation. And this just made it fun but it also was informative because it actually, in the course of in between all the jokes, you learned a lot about what they're doing and the fact that they've got their very first 100% carbon neutral device, which is the Apple Watch Series 9. So I thought it was absolutely really well done. And I thought all the people involved in it did a really nice job, including Tim Cook. I mean, I thought that for his comedic debut, that was quite good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like when I first realized it was going to be an environmental segment, I was like, okay, well, another one of these environmental segments that we get every year, which are nice, but mostly, I assume they're doing a little bit better each year, but it's nothing like major. And then a little ways into it, I feel like it starts to hit you like, oh, this is really, they're trying to show us that this is different. And then the more it went on and the more they just started emphasizing everything, and even like making fun of themselves almost regarding whether or not they really were serious about how big of an impact they're trying to make here. And I feel like by the end of it, I mean, they've set a really high bar for themselves, and it seems like they're very serious about it. And this definitely seems to be a new or a renewed initiative that we'll have to keep watching and make sure they actually follow through. But it seems like this is a big deal.
Right. I mean, it's not. I don't think the date is a new date, but they've gotten to a milestone, which is actually having a product that's 100% carbon neutral. And I think it also is important that 2030 is really not that far away. I mean, that's going to be on us before we even know it. So they're really within shouting distance of this goal. And I think that's kind of what they were trying to say in a way, was that, we've been working on this for years and years now. And we actually are at a point where we feel like as a company, they're confident enough that it sounds like they feel like they are absolutely going to accomplish it by then.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Agreed.
I think it's important to, the more I think about it, the more I feel like the purpose of this video was to simplify a complex message and make it entertaining in a way that more people will pay attention and eventually become aware of the issue and what Apple is doing. Because I feel like with a lot of these environmental and, issues related to climate change, for example, what I think is true for a lot of people, unfortunately, is that, and there's no good way to say this, but a lot of people don't care about it because they find the subject boring, because it's not the kind of thing that happens to you immediately. And that's not the case, and I know that, but I talk to a lot of folks, like my mom, for example, right? It's like, Mom, do you need to drive around all the time and things like that? And she, like the older generation of folks, they just don't care. And they don't pay attention to this topic, right? Because they find it boring, and they're like, now, like, for example, a common reaction that I hear from older folks is like, yeah, now they want you to worry about this stuff. Like, and I feel like trying to reach a broader audience and make the message interesting and entertaining is a smart way to go about it, to make more people more aware of this. So it was kind of weird maybe to have this video, but the more I think about it, the more I think it serves an interesting and good purpose.
Yeah, I feel like I appreciated that it wasn't just another one of their jokey videos for the sake of joking, like a lot of the Craig Federighi ones we've seen, which are fun. But this, it really feels like they were really using this for a purpose, and I think that they hit on that really well. And yeah, I feel like it was effective.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the iPhone. John, where do you want to start? iPhone 15.
Yeah, we should start with the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus. And, this is a little bit what people expected. I mean, we got the hand-me-down chip, essentially, the one that was in the 14 Pro and Pro Max last year, is now going to be in the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus. And, from a design standpoint, the phone hasn't changed a lot. There's this more contoured edge, which does looks like it'll give it a little bit different feel in the hand. The glass back, they have done some sort of process to infuse the color throughout the glass, which they say gives them more control over the saturation and that sort of thing. And then it has an etched finish that makes it kind of a matte texture. And so I think they look really nice. I mean, it comes in a bunch of different colors as well. There's pink, as you mentioned before, but there's also yellow, green, blue, and black right out of the box, which I think is really nice. And every time I see those phones, I think, why can't we have this with the Pro and the Pro Max? Because, we'll get to those, but they've got a much more muted palette when it comes to the Pro phones. And it doesn't seem like that's going to change anytime soon. The chip isn't, there's not a lot to say about the chip since it was there before in the Pro line under the 14. But the screen is a brighter screen now. It can do 1600 nits of HDR brightness and can reach a peak of 2000 nits in bright sunlight, which is twice what the iPhone 14 did. So that's a pretty big jump for the base model iPhone, and something a lot closer to what was the kind of thing that Apple bragged about the Pro phones for in the past. So that's a pretty nice update there as well. And it includes too, of course, USB-C, which we talked about, which we all kind of expected, Qi 2 compatible MagSafe, and it has a new second generation ultra wideband chip. And one of the things that is enabling is the ability to kind of track down your friends like they were AirTags, is the way I think about it. Maybe you lose your phone in the cushion of a couch, or you can't find your keys, and you go looking for them with Find My Items, and you get the arrow, and as you get closer, you kind of told it's off to the left or to the right or whatever it happens to be. You can do that with people now too, because the ultra wideband chip works a lot further. I believe they said 30 meters, which is a significantly longer distance than in the past. I guess the final big hardware thing is, of course, the camera, because you've got a 48 megapixel sensor, and they've done the 2x telephoto thing here, like they did with the Pro before, which is essentially a cropping, but it's it's kind of a natural crop for this size sensor. So it's kind of a cheat zoom in a way, but it does allow the phone to have a 0.5x, 1x, and 2x zoom level for a phone that only has two lenses on it. So, I think all in all, it's quite a good update. And I guess the last thing that I'll mention, which is also on the Pro phones, is this new roadside assistance program where for 2 years after you buy the phone, if you're in the United States, unfortunately, this is US only for the time being, they've partnered with AAA so that if you're outside of mobile data or Wi-Fi.
What's AAA? Please explain to the non-American.
It's the American Automobile Association. It's a company that it's basically an association of mechanics around the United States where you can call and you can get roadside assistance. So you can get a flat tire changed or your battery jumped or something like that. So if you join AAA, you just call a phone number and someone comes out and they'll take care of you and fix your car.
I just realized for the first time I had no idea what AAA stood for. It's so ubiquitous here. Everyone just knows AAA.
See, I know. I'm familiar with AAA. In any event, you'll get this service whether you're a AAA subscriber or not for those first 2 years. And it's the kind of safety feature that I think a lot more people will find themselves using, because I think most people have at one time or another found themselves with a dead battery in their car, a flat tire, and needed a helping hand. And if that happens when you're outside of cellular service or Wi-Fi, it's really hard to deal with. And with this, you'll be able to use the satellite feature that people have been using to, survive, avalanches and, being stuck at the bottom of a ravine. But now it'll work for you if your car's on the side of the road without any gas too.
Hey, so I realized a couple of days ago, as I was finalizing a chapter of my iOS review, that I never actually set up satellite connection on my iPhone. Like, I never tested it. And so I tried to do the demo, right? There's a demo in settings where you can try the satellite connection for emergency SOS. And I couldn't get it to work because so I've been spending most of my days at home for the past week just writing in isolation. And so for a good 20 minutes, if anybody saw me, I looked like a crazy person on the balcony, just walking out, left and right, trying to get a satellite connection. But because there's another balcony upstairs, it couldn't get a signal. Like, the iPhone was pointing me to the satellite direction, but because there's another balcony above me, I couldn't get it to work. So I think what I'm going to do over the next couple of days is go to the park when there's no obstacles in the sky and try to finally use the satellite feature, which I hope I'll never have to use in real life, knock on wood. But I never actually tested it for myself. So I don't know why I'm saying this, but it just popped in my mind.
I don't think I've done it either, so I don't know. I mean, I'll have to try it sometime myself. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Clean My Mac X. Junk files, hung processes, and malicious apps can slow down even the latest, most powerful Macs. Maintaining your Apple machine, whether it's old or new, is essential to a smooth-running Mac. Clean My Mac X is an all-in-one Mac maintenance tool that takes care of old junk, faulty apps, and malware in an efficient and aesthetically pleasing way that's completely hassle-free. Using Clean My Mac X's menu bar app, you can monitor your Mac's health, CPU load, and a whole lot more too. With more than 30 million downloads and 15 years of expertise, this app is a must-try for any Mac user. Run Clean My Mac X to gear up your Mac for the groundbreaking additions announced at this year's WWDC. As Apple continues to pack Macs with innovative features, Clean My Mac X ensures that your hardware remains healthy and running at peak performance, so you can enjoy a seamless macOS experience. I've been using Clean My Mac X almost as long as I've been using a Mac. It really has been that long because the app's been around for 15 years and it's evolved a lot in that time. It does a lot more than just cleaning up junk files and cruft that you don't need on your drives. It scans for malicious software, it tunes up your memory, it monitors what's going on with your CPU and other metrics. It really is an all-in-one complete solution to making sure that your Mac is running with top performance. Because you know what? You want that to be the case because Sonoma is right around the corner and it's a great release, and Clean My Mac X is a great way to get ready for it. All App Stories listeners can get 5% off on Clean My Mac X. Just check out the link in the show notes or go to macpaw.app/appstories. That's macpaw.app/appstories, or click the link in the show notes to get 5% off on Clean My Mac X. Our thanks to Clean My Mac X for their support of the show. Shall we talk about Pro phones?
Let's talk about the Pro phones. And I mean, the thing, there were two things that I was excited about: titanium and USB-C. Mm-hmm. And we got titanium and we got USB-C. But for the USB-C part, we did not get Thunderbolt. No. So I want to start there, maybe, before we talk about the design and titanium. So I've been doing some reading on the Apple website and in the press release and in the tech specs page. So Apple is using, it's not using USB 4. as a spec for the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max.
It's
They're
3,
using
right?
It's USB 3 speeds, so 10 gigabits per second data transfers, which is much, much better than the USB 2 speeds that Lightning was using. By the way, the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus are still using USB 2 speeds. So the USB 3 stuff is iPhone 15 Pro only. But it's not USB 4 and it's not Thunderbolt 4, let alone Thunderbolt 5, which was announced today. But currently, no Thunderbolt 5 controllers exist on the market. So that's for next year. This USB 3 stuff, what I think is interesting, and I'm guessing that for now, the answer to this question and to this detail is a boring one. On the Apple website, they specifically call out that you will be able to connect an iPhone to a 4K display using DisplayPort. So the idea being that USB 3 supports up to 4K displays. You cannot use 5K. And you will be able to connect to, for example, a studio display at lower resolution by using the DisplayPort alt mode of USB-C cables. Now, why would you do this? Is it because the iPhone suddenly supports Stage Manager? No, it's likely just to preview footage.
Right.
If you're a photographer and you're using a compatible app to shoot and you want to preview a 4K video on an external display, now you can do it. Or you can AirPlay mirror a game, I guess, which, I mean, it doesn't sound so bad given the A17 Pro chip on the iPhone. This is what I want to talk to you about, John.
Yeah. I mean, look, you and I have been using 4K portable displays for the Switch. I mean, I think that this would potentially be a very nice way to play a game for sure.
Yes. So if a game, I mean, I'm guessing you could just do AirPlay mirroring via, like screen mirroring over USB-C.
Yeah, that probably would be fast enough. Yeah, I would think so.
And I mean, it's not, now that I'm thinking out loud now, I think, realistically speaking, in a couple of months, we may be in a situation where you have an iPhone 15 Pro, a USB-C cable, you run the cable to a 4K display, and you can play a mobile game with ray tracing, which they showed off during the event, or Resident Evil 4 Remake on an iPhone with a game controller.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild. I mean, it is very wild. I mean, Apple loves Resident Evil, don't they? They're tight. They're so tight with Capcom these days. It seems like every era of Apple. I'd like to do a story sometime about the game eras of Apple. You know, they have there've been so many.
You should do this.
There's so many different eras where for 4 or 5 different keynotes in a row, there were various games that kept popping up, and Resident Evil
this
is
an
the current
excellent
favorite.
pitch for a story. I love it. I love it because, I mean, I think off the top of my head, Resident Evil Village is probably at its 6th or 7th consecutive mention.
I think so. Yeah, it's at least for the last 3 years. I think it popped up right before last summer. But anyway. So yes, we might be able to do that. And I think it is disappointing that it's only USB 3. On the other hand, it's only going to be a bottleneck for very specific use cases like transferring large video files, which, this thing is very capable of, this phone is going to be very capable of creating very large files, whether it's spatial video or ProRes video at 4K 60 frames per second. Those are big chunky files, and it's going to take a while even with USB 3 to get that stuff off of the camera. Now, the phone also allows you to record directly to an attached hard drive, which I think is surprising a little bit for Apple. I mean, I really didn't think that would be possible with this phone, but if you're a photographer and you're doing video, that's really nice, the ability to have that USB 3 hard drive right there and just record to the drive instead of recording to the internal storage of the iPhone. It both allows people to buy an iPhone Pro that has smaller storage, so it's not as expensive, and it means that it goes directly to the drive, which, hopefully maybe you have a drive that can connect to the iPhone with a USB 3.0 connection, but then has Thunderbolt for when you're connecting to a Mac later on. So I think that's a pretty nice, I guess, fallback if for not having Thunderbolt on the phone itself.
I have a question for Alex. They're not making small phones anymore, but they are making a titanium iPhone 15 Pro. Thoughts?
Oh man. I'm still running my iPhone 13 mini.
Oh my god!
This is the first time.
You are?
What did you say?
You are? You're still using that?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god!
This is the first time in I don't know, almost a decade that I am not on the annual iPhone upgrade cycle. And I love the size, man. I love it so much. I have my laptop with me always, or I'm home on my computer. I just don't need my phone to be a computer for me right now. I just need it to be a phone. And I just love the size so much. I love that it just fits in my pocket and it's small and I just don't have to deal with it. But it is 2 years old now, and the battery is, I never really had a problem with the battery originally that everyone else did, but by 2 years in, I now do. It's degraded enough that it's definitely a problem. It needs to usually be charged by the end of the day if I'm using it a lot. And it's not great. And yeah, now I'm at a decision point here. Especially, I got, I have a honeymoon coming up, and I'm kind of thinking it'd be really nice to have a really nice camera and get some good pictures when we're, in a beautiful place. So I don't know. I'm glad that I have a few days to think about it. Going into this event, I honestly was just kind of, I was considering buying another 13 mini before they stopped selling them just to refresh the battery. But I don't know. I am happy that the titanium is making it, a lot lighter. I'm hoping that would help to some degree. But I gotta say, I'm not really excited. And it's a shame because I've spent most of my life, it feels like, being really excited for new iPhone upgrades. And the mini phone, when I got it, was the most excited I had been in years and years. I never liked the big phones when I had one, and I had one, the whole time they existed, and I never really liked it. I never adjusted to it. And when I got the mini, it was like, yes, the era is back of the mini phones. I'm so happy. And now it's gone. It's gone again. So it's sad, but I feel like at this point it might be time. I don't know. I'm gonna be thinking about it for a few days.
They literally removed what's the last one? The 13 mini.
Yep.
Yes.
From the lineup.
I know.
So it starts with the SE. They kept the 13, the 14, basically to hit every price point. Going as low as $429 for the SE. So they kept the 13, 14, and then of course the 15. So I'm sorry, Alex, but honestly, just get the 15 Pro, man. You want to take great pictures, with the wedding coming up and the honeymoon coming up and everything. Just do it for your future Alex.
It's true.
Gonna be thankful.
It's true. I am gonna have to wake up right at 5 a.m. to get in there because it's I have no extra days to get the phone other than the first day it drops if I wanna have it for all of this.
So titanium, John, anything specific we need to know about this titanium process that they have?
Oh, well, I mean, it is kind of interesting. They said that the chassis inside the phone is still aluminum, and they've basically fused the titanium and the aluminum frame inside together in a process that, of course, they described as revolutionary and never done before type thing. Who knows? But it is aluminum on the inside, titanium on the outside. It's got a brush process, so it looks kind of like, it has that kind of nice brushed look along the side of the phone. It's contoured like the other iPhones, the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus. And I'm just really curious to see what it feels like to hold this in my hand and see, does it really feel a lot lighter? Because I'll tell you, I have noticed, I mean, that's the one downside of the Pro Max. I really love the screen. I really love the battery life. but it is kind of heavy. I mean, you do notice it in your pocket. It's not something that just, you don't feel in your pocket when you're walking around. So it'd be nice to have something a little lighter.
We talked about USB-C, titanium, the new camera stuff. So
yeah, and the chips too. We should talk about the chips too when we get to it.
And we should talk about the chips. We mentioned the A17 Pro, the brand new GPU that they have. So obviously Apple believes in sort of continuing to grow the mobile gaming performance of an iPhone.
Right.
To the point where they literally showed Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil 4 Remake coming later this year to the iPhone. Ubisoft is committing to bring in the console version of Assassin's Creed Mirage, the brand new entry in the series that sort of goes back to the roots of the first Assassin's Creed game, next year on the iPhone. Obviously, knowing Apple, they're gonna promote these 3 games, these 2 Resident Evil games and Assassin's Creed forever. They're gonna mention these games forever.
Assassin's Creed it's gonna be the new Village. I really think that Assassin's Creed is gonna take over that mantle.
I bet that there will be delays for Assassin's Creed Mirage on the iPhone, but when it eventually comes out, they will it'll be the new No Man's Sky and the new Resident Evil Village.
Yeah, no, I mean, and Assassin's Creed's one of those games that literally any new platform comes out, there's an Assassin's Creed game for it. I mean, it's kind of everywhere. I guess the Village is kind of like that too. I thought it was interesting that we didn't hear anything about Death Stranding, although I guess that was announced at WWDC as a Mac thing. So today wasn't a Mac event, but it feels like a game that if you really wanted to wow people, you'd say that's coming to the iPad.
I just find it so interesting as a proposition to say, play a console game on a phone.
Yeah.
Because traditionally, console games that deal with complex interfaces, inventory management, I am really curious to see what Ubisoft does for letting you manage an inventory in an Assassin's Creed game running on an iPhone 15 Pro. Not even the Pro Max, on a 15 Pro. Like, how are they going to solve that from a design perspective? And you're also asking people to play in landscape with the phone, and Apple doesn't make its own controller, so you got to go out and buy a compatible accessory. To me, this feels like a lot of prep work for the iPad Pro line eventually getting this sort of GPU and this sort of games.
Yeah, because that makes sense to me.
On an iPhone, I don't know.
Well, it might ultimately be the Mac story too, because the Mac doesn't have a separate GPU; it's got an integrated GPU as well. And you and I were talking a little bit about the Thunderbolt 5 announcement today by Intel, and whether that might be a precursor to Apple adopting eGPUs again for the Mac. Because I just Apple's graphics in Apple Silicon system on a chip, they're good, but they're not really good for gaming, not like traditional PC gaming. They need a little something more. And maybe the something more is this new GPU that they're working on. And this is just the iPhone version, and they're going to scale it up on other platforms. I mean, an eGPU, it's weird. There was support for an eGPU on one of the last Intel revs, and it came and went in a flash. It was out for like, I don't know, a year or 2 years, and then it went away again with Apple Silicon. And it always struck me as a weird direction for Apple to take it, but they're also not super committed to building their own controllers or anything like that. So I really don't know where they're going with it. I mean, I think probably what we're seeing with the iPhone is more likely to get scaled up to other platforms than eGPUs coming back, but I'm not really sure.
By the way, it looks like, thank you, Jonathan, from the Discord with the link saying that Death Stranding is also coming to the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max.
Oh, that's interesting.
This year, alongside...
Yeah, I don't think they said that originally. I think that they only said the Mac and maybe the iPad.
Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 4, and Death Stranding coming to the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max later this year. Assassin's Creed Mirage in the first half of 2024. We're lucky if we get this game at WWDC 2024. Assassin's Creed Mirage. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Eric, for the feedback in real time. John, I know very little about the cameras of the iPhone 15 Pro.
All right.
Before we wrap up and we answer the many questions that we received from members of the Discord, that's one of the perks of listening live and being a Club Premier member or an App Stories Plus listener. You get an extra segment, and if you're a Club Plus or Premier member, you get to chat with other people in our Discord server. Before we do that, the cameras of the 15 Pro and Pro Max.
Yes. So the Pro has a 48 megapixel sensor that Apple says is an improvement over last year's 48 megapixel sensor. We're going to have to wait and see what pro photographers do with this to see how big the difference is. It still takes by default 24 megapixel images, because otherwise it would be eating up too much of your storage space. The iPhone Pro has a 3x zoom, and the Pro Max has a 5x zoom, thanks to what Apple said is a tetraprism design, which means...
Is this the periscope lens or not?
It is. It basically is. I mean, what they're doing is they're bouncing light off of multiple prisms in order to create a focal length that doesn't require the lens of the camera to stick any further than it already does out of the phone. So, this 5x zoom would have required that lens to come significantly outside the phone, but because they're using prisms to bounce the light around inside the phone, it kind of folds that path of light in on itself a little bit and allows them to get the zoom without making the phone any thicker than it is. So that's the big innovation here. And 5x zoom on a phone, that's pretty good. I mean, we'll have to see how it performs in practice, but it sounds like a nice improvement. I think the thing that shouldn't go unsaid about this new camera too is that for people doing videos, the fact that this can do 4K 60 frames per second and in ProRes and has support for log encoding, that's a big deal for people shooting movies and wanting to color grade them in post. So that's a significant thing that I know from talking to people who are into that sort of thing, was really felt that was a really big missing piece for being able to use it in a more pro situation. So that'll be a nice addition for people who want to take, more serious videos and movies with their iPhones.
And you can actually get the video off the phone now, which is a plus.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm very keen to try the new camera UI with support for saving footage directly to an external drive. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a whole market. Now that the iPhones have USB-C, there's going to be a whole market for two things. Snap-on USB-C chargers, like the Mini Anchor Lightning battery pack that I have. They already announced they're going to make a USB-C version of that. That is a must-have accessory, in my opinion. And little drives that attach to the side of the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max to let you save footage directly onto the drive. So I think those are two kinds of accessories that we're going to start seeing soon. A couple more things that I was almost forgetting to mention. The iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, they have official support for the upcoming Qi 2 wireless standard. Although I find this kind of confusing from Apple's website, because in the press release they mention that it'll be compatible with Qi 2. Right. On the tech specs page, they only say that MagSafe charging will charge as before up to 15 watts, but Qi charging is limited to 7.5 watts. I believe that this means that they said Qi 2 support is coming, but currently on the tech specs page for the iPhone 15 Pro, you can buy now, or I guess pre-order in a few days. You will still default to the old Qi 7.5 watts charging. So that's probably what's going on here. And I can't believe we were almost forgetting about this, but the action button.
Oh, yeah,
we should talk
sure.
about the action button. I mean, I am so excited about this.
Are you really? I'm not. I'm not really that excited about it. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's just it's like the Apple Watch Ultra. It's a button and it does stuff.
Yeah, on a device that I actually use. So the thing is, a couple of things I want to shout out here. We all knew this was coming, this was happening, but still to see the implementation in practice is very nice, because there's going to be this. We have a few screenshots. Maybe we can put them in the show notes, John. They were shared in the Wonderlust channel here on Discord. There's this brand new UI for assigning actions to the action button in iOS 17 for the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max. And this UI looks wild. There's some 3D graphics going on for switching between, say, I want to toggle the camera or I want to toggle the flashlight. There's all these things that you can do with the customizable sort of programmable action button. This UI looks very different from what we normally see on iOS. Very 3D. There's a lot of depth to it. And I believe a few folks were speculating that the lighting effects, I believe Lachlan was saying that the lighting effects on the on these screens sort of look ray traced. And that immediately sort of like a little light bulb went off in my brain when Lachlan said this. I mean, now that the iPhone 17 Pro has a GPU that is capable of ray tracing, I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing ray traced UI from Apple more and more in the future. Ray traced UI sounds silly as a thing because you're obviously used to seeing ray tracing or its evolution, path tracing in video games. But I think it also has its place in user interfaces, especially those that are not afraid to play around with depth and lighting effects.
Right.
So having ray traced sort of with this kind of global real-time illumination in a user interface, that would be wild.
Yeah, if they could do it without crushing the battery, that would be good. I mean,
sure.
That's pretty computationally intensive to do ray tracing on something that you would have in front of you a lot. But yeah, I think I'm happy that there's an action button, that it's just not only a mute switch. I'll probably set it to do something like turn on my house alarm when I leave the house or something like that with a shortcut would be my guess. That's the thing that I think of first of all. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that you can tie them to focus modes maybe too, like maybe
yes.
in the evening, you want it to be the flashlight so you can like find your way, in a darkened house or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of things you could do that way.
I think at a glance, judging from these photos that I'm seeing online, you can choose 9 different modes.
Yeah, there's translate, there's accessibility, there's a whole bunch. There's camera.
And shortcuts. And based on what I've seen so far, it looks like Shortcuts has some UI updates when running via the action button. And this is totally the kind of small thing that I notice and maybe other folks don't care about. But on the Apple website, there's this screenshot of a shortcut being triggered via the action button on the 15 Pro. And the shortcut in this case is a note-taking shortcut that lets the user capture an idea into Apple Notes. And that shortcut brings up a text input field that has a yellow accent color. And to my knowledge, text input fields in shortcuts in iOS 17 are not color tinted based on the accent color of an action. So I need to understand.
Yeah, could it be a notes thing, like a notes action or something?
Could it be a notes only thing?
Yeah.
It's not something that I've seen so far in iOS 17. Is it just when you use the action button? We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But regardless, I am. And also another thing that I would like to confirm at some point is, and this is a little inception-y maybe, can I use a focus mode, and hear me out, can I use a focus mode to change the behavior of the action button? Meaning, when I'm at work, I want my action button to capture a note.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant.
When I'm on my... No, but the way that Apple explains it is you press the action button to turn on a specific focus mode.
Right.
Whereas I want the action button to change its behavior based on which focus mode is active.
Yeah, that's what I want too.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. There's no way of knowing right now.
All right, everybody. We're going to do a post show in just a moment for our App Stories Plus subscribers and our Club Mac Stories Premier members. I want to thank our 3 sponsors for this episode again. That's ZocDoc, Vitally, and Clean My Mac X. Talk to you later, Federico.
Ciao, John.
Bye, Alex.
See you guys.